Dear ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my colleagues and myself, I would like to apologize for the delay in putting up this particular chapter, but for good reasons. As we had mentioned before, we have every intention of addressing any and all events that are the result of Muhammadan Islam's actions, sayings, deeds, or thoughts anywhere on the face of our planet. One of the most persistent comments made against us by the followers of Muhammad and their supporters has been and is the subject of the Jews. That is, that the worst insult a Muhammadan can throw at another human being, especially another Muhammadan, is calling him a Jew. Any time they want to vent their frustrations on someone, they accuse their victim of being a Jew or a Zionist, even if they are Christian, Hindus, or other sects of Muhammadan Islam, and have absolutely nothing to do with the Jews or Israel. One should wonder as to why do the followers of Muhammad, almost 1,400 million or more, the absolute majority of whom have never met a Jew or an Israeli in their life, hate Jews so intensely. We have been researching this phenomenon in the last few weeks so that we can address this volatile subject in as enlightened and fair a manner as possible. Since we were anyway intending to address issues such as India, Kashmir, Pakistan, Sudan, Africans, Darfur, Arabs, Palestine, Israel, Arab refugees vis-à-vis the refugees of other nationalities, human rights in Muhammadan Ummah, freedoms of speech, religion, etc., etc., we have decided that the first of these current affairs should be the paramount subject of Arabs, Palestine, Israel, and the Jews. Please be aware that this chapter will be the last we shall put up for at least another month before we start again, because we have to attend to publishing Volume 2 of Lifting the Veil of chapters 101 to 200, including an introduction, a glossary, and more. Now I shall address our subject. Using their petrodollar wealth as clout, Muhammadan Muslim governments are doing their utmost to silence any and all disparagement of, comments on, or analysis of Muhammad and his cult belief system. For almost 1400 years, the followers of Muhammad have been able, through terror, subjugation, and mendacities, to suppress and cover up the darkest secrets of Muhammad's vile character, as clearly demonstrated in their hadiths, both to the outside world as well as to the immense majority of the followers of Muhammad, with a bodyguard of lies. Yes, a bodyguard of lies so dense that they have been able to get away with their deception for the last 1400 years. But not anymore. The reason for their current urgency is obvious: the internet. They have at last woken up to the most apocalyptic nightmare of the cult of Muhammadan Islam, the four horsemen of their apocalypse, called knowledge, 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 and knowledge. Since 9/11 especially, the very internet that the Muhammadan terrorists are using as an effective venue for their propaganda and the dissemination of information on how to commit atrocities against the kuffar civilians, that is, us, all over the world, is also the same that has become the best source for educating all of humanity, of so-called believers and unbelievers, about the facts and reality of the degenerate and demonic cult of Muhammad, his Quran, and his Sunnah. A chapter that will compare and contrast two belief systems and their adherents, which will most assuredly surprise many of you by its revelations. As always, we shall bring to you only facts that any of you can verify at the click of your mouse. We shall start with one of the most insidious issues of Muhammadan Islam, which is, are Muhammadan Muslims, whether Arabs or from other nationalities, victims, as they claim, or are they the victimizers? Our Western media, both on television and in print, are filled with Muhammadan Muslims complaining about how they are victims of discrimination in the world's democracies. We are told ad nauseum that they, the Muslims, are angry. Muhammadans never cease from being angry. Angry at how Christians, Hindus, Jews, or others are allegedly mistreating their fellow Muhammadan Muslims somewhere on the face of our planet. Muhammadans, after all, consider themselves as one nation of a belief system called the Ummah, while all other human beings on earth, 80% of humanity, are considered the enemies of Muhammadan Islam, the enemies of this ummah. Enemies of Muhammadan Islam? Why so? When in fact and in reality it was Muhammad who unilaterally declared his jihad, unholy war, 1400 years ago against all so-called unbelievers and disbelievers, and 400 years before the Crusades, the remainder of unsuspecting humanity. The Muhammadans are always angry, invariably demonstrating their rage with hate-filled and contorted grimacing faces, screaming and inveighing against all unbelievers while holding their peace-loving Quran in one hand and guns, rocket launchers and daggers in the other, shouting their terror mantra, Allahu Akbar. The same Allahu Akbar that was yelled by Muhammad and his murderous thugs while attacking their unsuspecting victims in ambush in the Arabian Peninsula 1400 years ago, starting first with a sea of blood against the pagan Arabs, Judaized Arabs, and Christian Arabs. As we have mentioned on so many occasions before, Muhammadan Islam and its indoctrinated followers are set in stone in the time warp of Muhammad's 7th century Arabia. They cannot transform. Are their claims real? Are these claims based on fact? How many Muhammadans, we ask, are genuinely afraid of the threat of retaliation or aggression against them in our democracies when in fact and in reality they flaunt their Arab dresses, their hijab and niqab in our faces in every single country in the West with total impunity? Many of those complaining interminably are well-educated and prominent academicians, politicians, clergy, and others from the Muhammadan Muslim community, as well as several well-meaning but totally ignorant and misguided British people who are articulating these so-called fears. We have therefore decided to explore this issue as comprehensively as possible on a once-and-for-all basis, leaving very few stones unturned. In order to properly assess their claims of victim status and of being the target of discrimination, we have had to find another group with whom to compare them. Based upon a lot of research and analysis, we have decided that as a matter of fairness as well as being a paramount issue in the world's current affairs, we must compare and contrast them with a similar faction scattered all over the world. Therefore, we have concluded that the only country and people that can be used as a benchmark for a comparative study are Israel and the Jewish diaspora. Since if we can prove our case using a small sample entity of people, our case will automatically be true for bigger entities such as Chinese, Americans, Indians, and Europeans. The Muhammadans, whether Arabs or others, claim that they are Muslims but hate with incredible intensity the first and earliest Muslims in world history, the descendants of the Israelites, the Jews. It is Muhammad's Quran, after all, that asserts that Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Jacob, and the tribes of Israel, Moses, Aaron, Jesus, Mary, and the apostles were all Muslims. Al-Baqarah 2.127. And remember, Abraham and Ismail raised the foundations of the house with this prayer, Our Lord, accept this service from us, for thou art all-knowing and all-hearing. Our Lord, make of us Muslims, bowing to thy will, and of our progeny a people Muslim, bowing to thy will, and show us our places for the celebration of due rights. Al-An'am 10.83. What was the reasoning about us which we gave to Abraham to use against his people? We raise whom we will, degree after degree. We gave him Isaac and Jacob. All three we guided, and before him we guided Noah, and before him we guided Noah, and among his progeny David, Solomon, Job, Joseph, Moses, and Aaron. Thus do we reward those who do good. And Zechariah, and John, and Jesus, and Elias, all in the ranks of the righteous. And Ismail, and Elisha, and Jonas, and Lot, and to all we gave favor above the nations. Since all the above are either Hebrews or Jews are Muslims, then massacring Jews and or oppressing them is against the Quran's instructions, and those who commit these crimes end up in hell. Dear ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my colleagues and myself, I would like to apologize for the delay in putting up this particular chapter, but for good reasons. As we had mentioned before, they accuse their victim of being a Jew or a Zionist, even if they are Christian, Hindus, or other sects of Muhammadan Islam, and have absolutely nothing to do with the Jews or Israel. One should wonder as to why Muhammad and their supporters has been and is the subject of the Jews. That is, that the worst insult a Muhammadan can throw at another human being, especially another Muhammadan, is calling him a Jew. Anytime they want to vent their frustrations on the followers of Muhammad, almost 1,400 million or more, the absolute majority of whom have never met a Jew or an Israeli in their life, hate Jews so intensely. We have every intention of addressing any and all events that are the result of Muhammadan Islam's actions, sayings, deeds, or thoughts anywhere on the face of our planet. One of the most persistent comments made against us by the followers